Welcome. Today we're going to learn how to use the pattern generator component. I have the application AI Builder 2 running. I'm going to double click the main screen to add a system module. I'm going to double click that system module to go inside it so that I can add components. The pattern generator component's in the decision logic components palette, and it's right here called pattern generator. And I'm going to drag one to the screen and drop it. And I'm also going to we're going to create outputs that will be elements of the pattern by connecting them to something we can visually understand just for purposes of education here and process. And what a great candidate for that's a 7-segment LED. And so what the 7-segment LED is that it's just as in commercial physical products. It has 7 segments that light up based on the input pattern. So that if the bit value for segment 1 is on, then segment 1 will be lit. So right now you can see them numbered because we're not running, we're not simulating. But if I simulate right now, you can see it's all black because all of the inputs to these 7 segments, and it's by default enabled on, are off, and so none of them are lit up. If I were to, let's just drag a button here, we're going to drag that to segment 1, we're going to simulate, and you can see when I press that, segment 1 is lit. So you can see how the display works. And I could actually drag it to another one too. There, let's run, and now you can see how that works. It's just a simple visual display. Now, when you export an AI system and import it into your host application, this 7-segment LED isn't going to be very helpful, but the connections to it will. So if you duplicate those and expose those to the output layer, and then eventually your host application, you have provided yourself an excellent way of ensuring that the way that you're producing these outputs is appropriate for your host environment. But I'm going to go ahead and delete this component and its associated connections. We're back to where we started. And what I'm going to do, just as it says in this pattern generator, I'm going to drag inputs to this right side of this pattern generator component to create the outputs. But before I do that, I want to double click on this and show you the component properties dialog for the pattern generator. You can see that this is empty over here. Normally there will be outputs, and you'll see how that changes as we drag outputs. And then you'll be able to add patterns that drive the binary value of each of those outputs, and you'll be able to visually do that and set it. But let's cancel out of that. We're going to drag these. We're going to go 1. Let's just see the impact when we do 2. Double click on this. We now have segment 1, segment 2 right here. Seg 1, seg 2 have just been created, and those are now outputs, and we'll be able to create a pattern for those and drive them. Let's cancel out of this. We're going to continue the process. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And so now let's double click on this. We can see that we have 7 outputs. And now if we add a pattern, we see that by default the trigger value is 0. And we can change this. Right now that's good for us because 0 is going to be one of the inputs that drives this display. We want a 0 to appear here when we see a 0 here. And so we know that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 segments should be on. Right now everything's off. So if I'm going to say OK, and let's run the simulator. We're seeing a 0. This is enabled, so everything's off, and that's what this is giving it to, all zeros. Let's stop, double click, and now what I want to do is for when the 0 is seen, I want this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one to be set. So I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 should be set when this is seen. And I think we update that. OK. Let's run now. There we are. So the input number is 0. That's the trigger number for this pattern generator. And it is generating the right outputs for driving this display. Let's stop. And let's do a couple more. We know that for 1, we want 2 and 3 lit and nothing else. So we're going to add a pattern. It's just going to numerically increase by 1 as we add new patterns, the trigger number. And that's fine. And we can change this to whatever we want, but right now 1 works for us. So and we want segment 2 and 3 lit and none others. So right now they're all off. We want seg 2, seg 3 on. Let's update that. OK. And let's do something here. I guess we'll have to use a button control here. So we have a 0, and then we press this, we get a 1, because when you use a control button, when you press that button, its output is binary, but it's a 1 value. And so we're now seeing the pattern number here of 1, so we see a 1 over here. And you can see segment 2 and segment 3 are on. When it's off, we get a 0. All right, so now we're going to stop that. And what I'm going to do is pause the recording of this video, and I'm going to set up the other digits, and then we're going to see that working. Okay, we're back, and I've generated the additional patterns. So now when we double click on the pattern generator, you can see we have triggers for each of the digits 0 through 9. And you can see that as I arrow through these, you have the associated custom pattern that I want for each of these trigger numbers. So essentially the way it works is the pattern number or trigger number here is what you see here. And when this pattern generator sees that value, it generates this pattern. So for seg 1, seg 2 through seg 7, that's what it is here. And the way that we are receiving that input, the way that this example is set up, the 7-segment LED receives seg 1 through seg 7, and they are numbered here, and that's the lit display. And so as I arrow through, there's trigger 1, that's segment 2 and 3, that's here, that would give me a 1. Let's look at segment 5, or trigger 5, excuse me. 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, so it's 1, 3, 4, 6, 7. See, that's a 1, 6, 7, 3, 4. That's a 5. All right, so we're happy with that. I'm just going to select, excuse me, OK. I'm going to get rid of this button here. We're going to delete that, and I'm going to add a random number generator. They're always very, very helpful in testing situations. So I'm going to connect that here. But I'm going to set this random number generator to give me an integer in the range of 0 to 9, and it gave me a 5 there, so let's run that. And there is our pattern generator. So based on this trigger number being seen here, the appropriate pattern is being generated, and we're seeing it over there, and we can slow that down, and there's many things that you can do here. Now, what we would do ultimately, let's say you were driving a 7-segment LED on some robotics device or what have you, you simply would replicate these by saying expose all outputs to module outputs layer. And so now we see it internally here. This is has no impact on an exported AI system, so it just helps you visually while you design one. But what we have is the appropriate setup here. So now as this is driving, you can see those are the outputs here. So the way your system on the outside would test for anything non-zero from this particular output would be something that you'd want to turn that segment or light on. And so let's look back out here. Here's the module now with 7 outputs, and I can expose these. Let's see, outputs expose all externally, and I want to create a new category. We're going to call this my 7-segment category, and we'll give it a background color of light blue, and there we have it. So now as we run our simulator, we can see that those are exported values, and you would simply check for a non-zero value there. And so these would be exported from the AI system. So in the runtime environment, you would just simply check for those values. And you could actually take the input from, go here to here, and this could actually be the input that drives that 7-segment LED display. All right, we'll go ahead and stop there.